What's going on, everyone? And to all my shaman lovers who have ever wanted to tank on the class, the time has finally come. If you haven't heard, World of Warcraft has announced Season of Discovery starting on November 30th, and there's going to be no PTR, no beta, just day comes along, fire it up, jump in, go. All right. Now, there were some people who got to show live gameplay footage of this at BlizzCon. I'm personally not comfortable using other people's gameplay footage for stuff for my own videos, but if you want to see the class in action as a tanking shaman, you can go check out the VODs of or YouTube videos of Guzu and Esfand. I know both of them were playing it. We got to tune in and check them watching it out live, and it was great to see a shaman tanking raid encounter type content or dungeon bosses in a much more effective manner than it has been able to do in Classic. So, but Season of Discovery is going to be a new take on the Classic experience where players are going to be able to discover these runes in the world of Azeroth, the Classic Azeroth, and these runes are going to be things that you apply to gear and will give you access to new abilities or alter existing abilities and change the way that they function. And that's going to allow a lot of classes to do different things. Paladins get access to a taunt. Mages get access to some healing. That's one's a little weirder. Warlocks are going to be able to tank with demonic transformation. Shamans are going to be able to tank. So we're only going to be talking about shaman today because that's what we care about. So we're going to go through, we're going to talk about these runes that are available and which slots they're associated with. They don't have the slots here on Wowhead. But I just want to talk about these runes that are coming for shaman. And, I'm personally just really excited for shaman tanking. This is something I've wanted for a long time to be able to do. So I'm stoked and excited and looking forward to it. So first off, in the helmet. So the first four that we're going to talk about are all helmet options. All right, dual wield specialization increases your chance to hit with both spells and melee attacks by 5% while dual wielding, and your storm strike ability now hits with both weapons while dual wielding. So it's going to be very interesting to see a dual wield storm strike in the classic talent environment because that, was adjusted for later on with TBC and Wrath and whatnot with more in-depth design to it. Not sure how mana's still going to come into play here, but having dual wield as a DPS option for shaman is a big deal, as particularly in Classic, as it will open up that dual wield Wind Fury choice, which can definitely make us a much more viable DPS option along the way. Shield Mastery. Each time you block, you generate mana equal to 4% of your maximum mana, and you gain armor equal to 30% of your shield's armor value, stacking up to 5 times. You also always gain 10% increased chance to block and 15% increased block value. So if you're tanking on a shaman, this is definitely something that you're taking. This is really nice. This is definitely going to give us some just flat baseline defensive gain to give us more survivability in this, PvE raid environment that we're looking to experience. Overload gives your lightning bolt, chain lightning, chain heal, healing wave, and lava burst spells a 33% chance to cast a second similar spell on the same target at no additional cost that causes half the damage or healing and no threat. This is definitely going to be a very interesting one to see on elemental shamans and even resto shamans, and just that extra burst damage that can come from it and healing as well. I mean, maybe if you're even somebody who goes that like hybrid talent choice with the that tri-spec situation for that LE resto enhance type of gameplay, these casted effects can be a nice big boost to the damage output that you have. Healing Rain selects the area 15 yards around a target player and heals all target players, party members within that area for 20 seconds. Healing Rain is a phenomenal AoE healing skill. There was a time where even enhancements were taking this for the talents. I think it was during Legion when a lot of people were doing like P80 stuff. Healing Rain was super valuable as just like additional supplemental healing, but it'll be interesting to see it in this scenario as well, as this is something that any of the specs are going to be able to take and make use of. So DPS shaman, if you're still sticking to like the two-hander, you may take Healing Rain and just be, this could be a utility skill for you, support skill for you. So these are the 4 choices for the helmet option of a rune that we saw on the live streams. So if you're DPSing, dual wield option is on the table. You still have access to two-hander in the talent tree as well. And then shield mastery here. I mean, we may even get to see some two-handed swapping between dual wield, two-hand, shield for just general PvP gameplay, maybe even a little PvE for certain situations. Who knows? But there's choices here in that regard. The next choices are for the chest piece. These are going to be, some main defensive things. Ancestral Guidance. For the next 10 seconds, 25% of your damage is converted to healing on up to 3 nearby party members, and 100% of your healing is converted to damage on your most recent flame shock target. So Ancestral Guidance is a skill many of you are familiar with. And it is also in retail currently with the 25% of your damage being converted to healing. The difference here is 100% of your healing is converted to damage on your most recent flame shock target. So it kind of doubles a little bit as a additional DPS gaining ability as well. Earth Shield protects the target with an earthen shield, reducing casting or channeling time lost when damaged by 30% and causing attacks to heal the shielded target by 100. This effect can only occur once every few seconds, 3 charges, last 10 minutes. Earth Shield can only be placed on 1 target at a time, and only 1 elemental shield can be active on a target at a time. So no Earth Shield and Lightning Shield at the same time. That's fair, I get it. At this point, especially, Lightning Shield is still really valuable here. That's an interesting thing as well about tanking, is that you are guaranteed to be having the target attacking you. So Lightning Shield is also a nice additional, damage contribution and aggro generation that you'll get just through more damage as a tank in this situation. Way of the Earth. While Rockbiter weapon is active on your main hand weapon, you deal 100% increased threat, gain 30% increased health, take 10% reduced damage, and you gain 6% reduced chance to be critically hit by melee attacks. And Earth Shock will taunt targets to attack you and has a separate cooldown from other shock spells, but it is now changed to a melee range skill if you do this. This is one of the most interesting talents of our choices here, in my opinion, because this would technically allow for imbuement weaving in a way in a PvP scenario. Not so much PvE. If you're PvEing, you would pretty much just leave this on 100% of the time. But if you're PvPing, having an imbuement that you can just like throw on, get increased health, damage reduction, it's kind of like a D-stance, that warriors have in a way, but, with some additional perks to it. That percent chance to reduce being critically hit, and putting Earth Shock on a different cooldown. You can throw on Rockbiter. Now you have your Earth Shock on a different cooldown and your Frost Shock's on a different cooldown. You can get a quick burst window there with that, while also taking less damage. But then you can throw Wind Fury back on or Flame Tongue back on, whatever, and your shocks will go back to normal and you'll go back to taking normal amounts of damage. So if it lets it work out this way, again, I didn't get to do this myself live. We'll find out on the 30th. But, that was one of the first things I thought about, was the potential to be able to, changing imbuements for, the same way warriors change stances in a way. And then Shamanistic Rage, an iconic defensive talent, reduces all damage you take by 20%, and you generate mana every second for 15 seconds. Mana generated per second is equal to 15% of your attack power, 10% of your spell power, or 6% of your healing power, whichever value is the greatest. So this is a great double use, multi-use cooldown for Shaman. 20% reduced damage taken is huge. Being able to have that, and since mana is such a problem on Shaman a lot of the time, getting that, mana regen every second for 15 seconds is pretty invaluable as a cooldown as well. Now, those were for the chest piece, for the glyph, the runes, and now this one is for gloves. It was gloves or belt. I can't remember off the top of my head right now, but it's got Water Shield. The caster is surrounded by 3 globes of water, granting 1% of your max mana per 5 seconds. When a spell, melee, or ranged attack hits the caster, 4% of your max mana is restored to the caster. This expends on Water Globe. Only one globe can be active every few seconds. Last 10 minutes. Only one elemental shield can be active on the shaman at a time. So again, if you take water shield, you can't take lightning shield or earthen shield, whatever have you. But if you take water shield and shield mastery up here, that's a lot of mana regen. That's a lot of mana return. You should not run into mana issues whatsoever when you've got two things giving you 4% mana back each, as well as 1% mana per 5 seconds. And you take, shamanistic rage even along the way. Let's say you don't have any aggro issues and you don't need Way of the Earth, and you go shamanistic rage. Boom. You've got so much mana regen. You should never be going in that situation then. At least that would be how you would think it would play out. So, water shield. Lava Burst. This was an iconic Ellie spell and is now also on enhancements in retail currently. You hurl molten lava at the target, dealing X amount of fire damage. If your flame shock is on the target, Lava Burst will deal a critical strike. So this is a huge thing. That value on flame shock coming into play here outside of its own dot damage, which this doubling up with the overload, right? If you get that second Lava Burst, I would assume that this second casted Lava Burst would also critically hit, just like this Lava Burst. So that's a very nice chunk of burst damage that you'd be able to get in PvE and PvP. Very valuable, very strong combination there. Lava Lash, another iconic enhancement shaman skills that has been around ever since Wrath of the Lich King. You charge your offhand weapon with lava, instantly dealing 100% offhand weapon damage. Damage is increased by 20% of your offhand if your offhand weapon damage is enchanted with Flame Tongue. Now, the interesting thing here is Lava Lash is obviously only a choice for you if you're running dual wield. So, you have to be taking this dual wield specialization if you're going to make use of Lava Lash. Maybe if you're one of those people running two-handed enhancement, Lava Lash isn't on the table. And now you're actually looking at Lava Burst as kind of like a hybrid cast ability if you ever have to move away from mechanics, and it just gives you a nice guaranteed critical range skill, or Molten Blast here, which we'll talk about in a moment. But the interesting thing here for Lava Lash is that your damage increased for Lava Lash is only by 20% if Flame Tongue is on there, which means it's very possible that you run Lava Lash, but you still also run double Wind Fury if you're running dual wield, right? So if that, if it all depends on the value of that Wind Fury damage versus the increase from Lava Lash if it has Flame Tongue on it. If that Wind Fury damage greatly outweighs that increased Lava Lash damage for Flame Tongue, then that could be an interesting change there as well. Or maybe you just opt for more consistent burst with a higher Lava Lash damage value. We'll see. But this is definitely going to make heavier offhand weapons an interesting, more viable choice in that regard. Molten Blast. Blast enemies in a cone in front of you for 39 to 54 fire damage, X amount of fire damage. This ability generates a high amount of threat. So it sounds like this is maybe supposed to be like an AoE threat aggro tool for the tanking spec. Flame Shock periodic damage has a 10% chance to reset the cooldown of Molten Blast. So this is going to actually benefit you to be putting Flame Shock on multiple targets when you're tanking group packs, because this is going to let you use Molten Blast very frequently. And this would actually be a very nice AoE damage tool that you'd be able to have. And this would bring some really consistent damage as well there. So very curious to see how that one will play out. That's kind of like how old Fire Nova was during Warlords of Draenor, where the Flame Shock ticks would reset Fire Nova. That's kind of what Molten Blast is here in a way. So very, very cool to see that. So those are the runes that are going to be available for Shaman. We're going to be able to tank. I'm very curious to see how these things are going to play out. They've said that they're not, through the game's development, through the Season of Discovery's development, and as the level cap increases, we're going to get more talents. They're talking about there's going to be more skills that they're going to add. There's going to be more choices for players to be able to pursue. And for some classes, they're not completely closed off to, really getting weird with it. And they're being like, kind of like a hybrid support warrior even, where they use shouts and banners as a thing. Shaman, hey, maybe we can get something where they let us really heavily lean into that two-handed shaman life. That's something I know a lot of people have also really wanted. People have really wanted two-handed shaman to be a thing, like as a full-on viable spec. And, you know, maybe this is the chance for a lot of the shaman lovers to get that. But that's all for now, everyone. Just wanted to go through the runes that are available, my thoughts on them. I'm excited for it. I'm looking forward to it. We will be playing Enhancement Shaman into the ground come November 30th. So if you want to check it out live or ask any questions, then you can catch us on Twitch, and you can catch us on Twitch now as well at twitch.tv/Zav. Take care. Have a good one.